What is going on, everybody? It's Voodoo 51292, and welcome to the third episode of a series that I am now calling Voodoo's Mailbag. And, oh, I got to stop watching my phone and forgot to start it. Voodoo's Mailbag is my question and answer series where I post videos asking for you to ask me questions, which you do, and then when I get enough, I make this video answering all of the questions I received on camera for you guys. And I've reached a limit where I can definitely make a good show out of all the questions I received, and we're going to go ahead and get started so I don't run over time. The first one is by username 1987 Mastermind, and he asks, since you played both Dark Souls games, will you play Demon Souls? Right now, I don't have any plans to play Demon Souls for a couple reasons. Number one, I've already seen a full playthrough of Demon Souls. I've seen the game from beginning to end, so I already have seen everything in the game. Number two, Demon Souls is quite a bit different from Dark Souls 1 and 2 in the way that it's designed and set up. I don't personally like the way Demon Souls is set up. I don't like the fact that you have to one-shot the entire levels in order to beat them, because there is no checkpoints, there's no bonfires, anything like that. So I don't necessarily like the way Demon Souls is set up. I feel it's a game that I get more aggravated and frustrated with than I did with a game like Dark Souls. And but I'm not saying I'll never play it. You know, I may in the future. Just to say I've played the whole Souls series, but right now, since I've already seen the whole game, and since I don't necessarily like the way it's set up compared to Dark Souls, it's not something that I'm planning on playing at this particular moment. But again, I'm not ruling it out entirely. Alright? So, then we get a series of questions from a user, wow, yes, quite a bit, by the name of Branko P85. Very, how should I put this? Very involved user, always comments and watches my stuff. So, there's like 8 questions here. So number one, what are your thoughts on this next generation of consoles? Are they meeting expectations of the people / you, or do you think like I do that this gen seemed a bit rushed, hence all the delays as of lately, because the game developers are trying to figure out the new tech all the while at the same time they're trying to keep up with the deadlines, I can't read, set by publishers, hence the reason they are delaying it instead of giving us a half-finished / rushed game, just to name one reason. I think the next generation so far has gone exactly how I predicted it to go. Of course they rushed it out. Video game industry, just like any other industry, is in the business of making money. People were clamoring, asking for new consoles, and per usual, like they do with pretty much every generation for the past few, they released the hardware long before the software was ready. They did this with PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. That's why the launch lineup for those games kind of sucked. That's what they do. They release the hardware before the software is ready. That's why the software we've seen on the next generation so far hasn't been a huge step up from the last generation, PS3 and 360, because developers aren't used to being able to, they're not able yet to fully capture the power of the new devices, hence why games aren't running at 1080p. They aren't running at 60 frames a second like this generation promised us, is because the developers aren't ready. Now, I think that's going to change in the next year or two. They're going to start harnessing the power, but I think with every generation, the peak of that generation is going to be 2-3 years into the life cycle, when the developers get a handle on it. So I'm not surprised that the new generation hasn't delivered as of yet. I think it will, but I think it's going to take time. Of course, they rushed it out. They got their money. They sold all their systems, and now we have to wait for the hardware, for the software to catch up. So I'm not surprised. As far as meeting my expectations, I didn't have any expectations yet. I fully knew going into this it was going to take a couple of years for this to be hashed out. So we'll see. I don't know. My expectations, we haven't reached that point where I have expectations yet. I'm looking next year, next year and the year after is when I expect things to start really catching up. So I'll answer that question when I can. Right now, I don't know. My expectation time limit hasn't come. Number 2, I guess this ties into the first question, but how do you think console, i.e. PS4, Xbox One games titles fare today against the PC? Graphically wise, performance wise, optimization. I think that we should have had standards like 1080 and 60 frames a second as a standard, not as an exception. In my opinion, there are far too few true next-gen games 1080p 60 frames out there for the PS4 and Xbox One. Like I just mentioned, yes, that's true. How do I think it compares to PC? Well, I really haven't been in the PC market very long. Okay, I just built my computer a few weeks ago, so I haven't really been immersed in it enough to really give you a good comparison. But I think that, again, how do they fare? It depends. It depends how games are ported to PC. Some games are optimized well for PC. Some games, like Watch Dogs, are not optimized well for the PC. So, like anything else, it depends. Watch Dogs, I don't think is that different on PC or next gen because they didn't port it well. I think several games are better on PC. Clearly, PC is better in that you control the graphics. So basically, compared to what kind of rig you have, you can determine if it's on 1080p ultra setting 60 frames. If it can't run at that, you can dial it back a bit. Obviously on console, you don't have that ability. You get whatever you get. So if the game is like Dark Souls, for instance, and the graphics aren't that great and the frame rates suck, you can't do a damn thing about it. On PC, that's not the case. So as far as that goes, you know, some ways PC is better, some ways consoles are better. It would take way too long for me to sit, and I'd have to make a whole separate video on PC versus console. But as far as a standard for 1080p and 60 frames a second, again, you know, who sets this standard? I mean, people make games for the systems, and that's all you have to choose from. So either you play the game on what they made it, you know, the frame rates and the graphics that they set, or you don't. Unfortunately, we don't get to dictate standards. Like I mentioned, the next generation was supposed to bring us 1080p 60 frames. I think we'll get there. I don't think we can take advantage of the hardware yet. I think that it's going to, like I mentioned, take a couple of years to get there, but I do think that 1080p 60 frames will eventually be the standard, but unfortunately that's for the developers to determine, not us. Number 3, what do you feel about the rumors going around that Sony and Microsoft are already working extensively on their new PS5, Xbox consoles, and that we might possibly see them sooner than we thought, i.e. this being a considerably shorter generation than the last one was? I honestly have not heard these rumors. I haven't heard anything of the sort. I would say to you, I don't expect this generation to be any shorter than the last, simply because I think the opposite. I think that each generation we see is going to be exponentially longer. Same way that you know, every generation that comes out seems to last longer than the one before it. Like with PS3 and 360, it lasted quite a few years more than the Xbox and PS2. And I think these systems are going to last even longer. I think this will probably be a 10-year system, because I think that the hardware and the power of these consoles keeps going up exponentially with each year. And right now, we're not even seeing the beginnings of what these things can actually do once the developers harness the power. So, and honestly, 360 and PS3 could have been around for several more years, you know, again, because we're not seeing the return on the new generations. But I haven't heard these rumors. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already working on it, because, again, they have to. I mean, there's always going to be a new iteration of consoles, and I don't think that they're working too hard on them right now, because these new systems are up to date with pretty much the latest and greatest technology. I mean, they can't really develop a new system with new technology till new technology exists. And right now, better technology doesn't really exist to put into these things. Now, I mean, obviously, I guess they could be going towards 4K and all that kind of stuff, but you know, I wouldn't put too much stock into it. I think that this console generation is going to be around for a while, and I, you know, whatever they're doing behind the scenes, they're doing, and you know, we won't know about it for some time. So I wouldn't put too much stock into it, and that's just that. Now my dog's going to bark. Number 4, has the PS4 met all of your expectations you had about it, or are there things about those consoles you wish were different, improved upon, left out, etc.? Again, I defer to my first answer. My expectations are for next year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. Then we'll see what PS4 can do. I know that it's not optimized yet, so I don't really have expectations. Let me tell my dog to shut the hell up. I'm home by myself, and when they're downstairs by themselves, they just start barking and shit because they get bored. Hey! Where's she? Hush up. Stop barking. I don't even understand what she's barking at because the freaking window blinds are closed. You can't even see outside. Anyway, okay. I told my dog to shut up. Yeah. So that question again, I defer to my answer for question 1. I don't know if it has met my expectations yet. Number 5. Where do you think gaming is headed? What is the future? Is AR, VR gaming, portable gaming, etc. the future? Maybe the traditional way of gaming as we know it right now. What will you be looking forward to and invest in? AR, VR headsets, your gaming PC, portable gaming, or maybe the traditional way of gaming as it is right now. It's a little bit redundant there in the question, but basically he's asking things like the Oculus Rift, these VR headsets and stuff like that. Is that the new wave? I think honestly what you have seen is that the core part of playing games, sitting in a chair like this with a controller in your hand playing on your TV, it's been proven now that that is gaming, and that's where it's going to stay in my opinion. We've been doing it for years. Now the technology has changed, the graphics are better, we can do the socializing, playing online and stuff, but look what just happened with this whole Kinect and Move and Wii thing, right? The Wii was popular when it came out for obvious reasons, and then it died off. The Kinect has been a massive failure. PlayStation Move, I don't even think they're making it anymore. Because gamers don't want that stuff. It's all peripheral junk. That true core gamers don't give a damn about. I don't give a damn about VR headsets. I don't care. I don't see that being the future. I see if it comes out that it's going to be a thing for a while and then it's going to go away. Just because it's great technology. I mean, Kinect is a great piece of technology. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. The Kinect is amazing in what it can do with the technology. But it's not useful or practical for playing video games. It's not. It's just Microsoft wanting to sell more crap. The Oculus Rift. I mean, I saw a demo of this thing. They did it on like Spike TV or whatever during E3, and I know this was probably it's a prototype model, so it might not look like this when it comes out. But the thing is freaking massive. You look like an idiot wearing it, and the whole time you're moving your head back and forth and up and down. And can you imagine doing that for any kind of long time? You're gonna get a freaking neck ache. You're gonna get a headache from looking all over the damn place. And to me, it's a bunch of nonsense. Sit on a couch, sit on a chair, whatever. Pick up a controller, play a game on your TV. That's where I think gaming is gonna stay. These peripherals will have a market for a little while, and then they'll go away, like Kinect and all this other stuff. So right now, I don't see anything changing in gaming. I really don't. Yes, graphics will get better. TVs will get better and be able to show better graphics and stuff, but sitting with a controller in your hand playing on a TV has existed since video games were created. You know, for frickin' Pong all the way up till now, right? Sitting there with something in your hand, a controller playing a game, whether it's on an arcade machine or a fighting stick or a gamepad, that has persisted now for what? I don't even know, 40 years or so. So I think that that's where it's going to stay at, in my opinion. Alright. Question number 6. What/which were your favorite consoles ever, and what was your first console you owned? Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, PC, or something else? My first console was the Commodore 64, then the SNES, blah blah blah. The first console that I ever really owned and played with was a Sega Genesis, and I played games like X-Men, the original X-Men, X-Men 2: The Clone Wars, Sonic the Hedgehog, Aladdin, those types of games on Genesis, and I moved up to a Dreamcast, PS2, and then obviously PS3, 360, and where I am now. I did play, little kid games on like DOS when I was really young. like Mickey Mouse games and stuff like that. My favorite console ever, I don't really know. I mean, oh, of course I had an N64 and a GameCube as well. I've said this before, but I really didn't get hardcore into playing games until this past generation with PS3 and 360. Before then, yes, I would play a few games, but it wasn't like what I did. When I was young, I played sports. I played basketball and baseball and did other things. And yes, I played games, but it was always kind of a side hobby thing. It was never something I was hardcore into. It wasn't my big hobby when I was young. And so, honestly, I don't really have a favorite game console. I don't think I've been hardcore into it enough yet to have one. I had fun with all the consoles that I owned. There were games that I played on every console that were fun, and I don't know if I really have a favorite one. You know, like I said, last generation was probably the first candidate for when I could really have a favorite one. I mean, probably as a kid, my favorite one was Nintendo 64, just because there were games. Obviously, all the Mario games, Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, all the Mario parties I played a lot of, NFL Blitz, Star Fox, obviously, those types of games. So probably as a kid, it was the N64. But overall, I don't necessarily really have a favorite one at this point. Alright, question 7. Which console, totally unbiased, that's me, do you think is honestly better, Xbox One or PS4? My personal honest opinion, the PS4 is way better than the One, simply because of the fact that one is trying to appease the multimedia audiences with all the TV, gadgets like Kinect, etc. Microsoft's been strongly focusing on, and honestly the lack of exclusive titles and good AAA games in general, their attitude against the consumers with statements like deal with it, all their 180-degree turnarounds and their policies even this very day. All that doesn't make things better, in my opinion. Well, I've pretty much covered this extensively in videos I've made. I've covered the whole. I've covered the new generation pretty thoroughly. I've made videos about. We did a Voodoo's Brew talking about the Xbox One conference. We did a Voodoo's Brew talking about the PS4 reveal conference. We did Voodoo's Brew about E3 last year, where they talked more about it. I made a few vlogs on the Xbox One. After what Don Matrick had to say, and then after they changed all their policies. So I've made plenty of videos talking about it. Which one's better right now? Again, it's hard to tell. We're too early in. I have a PS4, so clearly that's decisions to speak for itself, which one I thought was the better buy at the time. Xbox is doing more, in my opinion, to get people to their side, because they have some exclusives. They have the Master Chief Halo collection and all that. Right now, looking at it, I would still go with the PS4 because of the exclusive titles, etc. But again, it's going to take time. We won't know which one is better until years from now. We have to see what comes out for each system, how each system handles different things. I mean, these systems just haven't been put through the tests yet. They just haven't. They haven't even been out. They've only been out, what, like 6 months, a little over 6 months now. I mean, that's just not enough time to tell anything. I mean, with 360 and PS3, they went through so many different things, and you know, the PSN hacks and the this and the that and the. So until these systems go through those trials and tribulations, obviously right now PS4 is running games better than 360. They're running them in typically 900p, whereas Xbox One is running it in 792. The hardware itself is more powerful in the PS4 than the Xbox One. I know the Xbox One for a long time had part of its GPU that was taken up by the Kinect mandatorily. If that's a word, I don't even know if it's a word. Well, it was mandatory that part of the GPU be sectioned off for the Kinect, and developers didn't have access to that part of the GPU. That's usually why games didn't run as well. Now, apparently, since they started not bundling the Kinect with the system anymore, they've unlocked that part of the GPU, and now developers have access to it. So we just have to see. It's just too early to make these kind of calls and these decisions on these consoles yet. They haven't been around long enough. Final question, and lastly, what is your favorite game thus far of 2014, and what is your most anticipated upcoming game? My favorite game thus far has to be Child of Light. Watch Dogs is great too, but has too many small problems for me to say that it is my favorite thus far. Looking forward to your answers. Well, I disagree with you on Watch Dogs. Obviously, I just put up a video the other day saying I was canceling the playthrough because I thought it was pretty boring. Favorite game thus far? Again, it's only June, but I would say probably Dark Souls 2 was my favorite, followed by Child of Light. I haven't really played too many games that have come out this year. Again, there hasn't been too many, honestly, that have come out this year. So probably Dark Souls 2, followed by Child of Light. Alright, thank you for all the questions. It's actually going to have to be a two-parter. I didn't realize I had quite this many questions. Next question is by Wee10, longtime viewer. He says, what is your opinion on the large amount of games that are being delayed? I think it's to be expected. I mean, usually a lot of games get delayed. I mean, they'll announce that they're coming out soon, and they do that in order to get people excited, and then they always push games back. Sometimes, if there's too many games bunched together, people will move their release dates of games in order to avoid there being so many games out at the same time and diminishing the purchase of their product. I haven't noticed that it's been a whole lot more than any time else. I mean, you know, I say fine. Delay your game as long as you want. I mean, if you're making it better, I will take a delayed game over a rushed game any day. Just like BioShock Infinite. How many times did that game get delayed? But when it came out, it was fantastic. So, take the time, get it right, don't rush the game. If you have to delay it, delay it. I understand it. I don't like games that get pushed way back and then come out not being polished, aka Watch Dogs, that got delayed a ton and it comes out and it still isn't polished. And the graphics are downgraded and all that. But if you take your time with it, you delay it, and it comes out really good, then I can't complain about that. Don't rush it. My thoughts on it are good. Because there's already so many games coming out at the end of this year. If the other games that were supposed to come out weren't pushed, it would be ridiculous. It'd be like, you know, 200 games coming out at the end of this year. So those are my thoughts. And then we have a series of questions from JP the Warrior, and then that's going to wrap it up. So I am going to go ahead and split the part and come back with part 2 to make sure that we get all these questions in. And then we will wrap up this episode. Alright. Okay, welcome back to Voodoo's Mailbag Episode 3. And we have a final few questions here from JP the Warrior. First question, who is your favorite actor? Probably right now Leonardo DiCaprio. I pretty much enjoyed everything he's been in, except maybe The Great Gatsby, which I didn't think was bad. I just thought that as good as he is, he wasn't necessarily the right role, or wasn't necessarily the right guy to play Gatsby. Other than that, everything else I've seen him in, I've loved. Shutter Island. I mean, you know, the list goes on and on and on with him. So he's probably my favorite one. I really, really like Christian Bale as well. I think he's very good. I've liked pretty much everything he's been in. But DiCaprio is probably my favorite, and it's a freaking disgrace that the man hasn't won an Oscar. And I think somebody's got something against him, because there's no way in my mind, as good as he is, and with the movies he's been in as the lead, that the man's never won an Oscar. I mean, I've won as many Oscars as Leonardo DiCaprio. There's something wrong with that. Okay, moving on. Do you still watch John Rambo Presents the Show? No. Who is your favorite superhero? I think I've answered this already in a previous video. I could be wrong about that, but my favorite superhero is Batman. Do you think Star Wars Episode 7 will be the best Star Wars movie ever made? Absolutely not. I don't understand why they're still making Star Wars. I don't understand what the hype is about it. Like, they've already molested Star Wars enough, haven't they? Like, why do they want to do this? Like, I understand it's a cash grab. I get it. Disney is just like, give me money. But it's like, dude, Star Wars has just been, it's been trashed at this point. And it's like, what is the big deal about this? Why are they making 3 more? I don't know. I don't understand. It's probably going to be a gigantic CGI mess, and I just don't, I don't know. You know, it's like, No, I don't think it's gonna be the best Star Wars movie ever made. I haven't even seen a damn thing about the movie because I don't even really care. Because it bothers me that they're even making more. Just stop. Star Wars is done. It got murdered. It's buried out in somebody's freaking. It's buried in George Lucas's backyard right now. Doesn't even have a tombstone on it. Okay, it's. I'm sorry. Hayden Christensen molested that movie, and it's just now. I actually liked Episode 1. A lot of people really didn't like. I actually thought Episode 1 was pretty good, but Episodes 2 and 3 were just like no, and they made it into some kind of teeny love story instead of Star Wars. And while I'm perfectly okay with Natalie Portman having lots of screen time, as far as the star, I just no. Okay, two more. Did you see X-Men Days of Future Past, and what did you think of it? I have seen it twice now. I saw it twice this past week. I thought it was excellent. I am very, very happy that Bryan Singer is back directing X-Men. He did X-Men 1 and X-Men 2, and everything else that's come after, X3, and then all the Wolverine stuff has not been him, and it's been garbage. We have not seen anything good from X-Men since X2. There's a reason. It's because Bryan Singer wasn't doing it. This movie, well, I take that back. X-Men First Class was actually pretty good. I actually liked for X-Men First Class. But the other stuff, X-Men 3, and then, oh god, the two Wolverine movies, the Origins movie, where not only was it a terrible movie, but they completely, like, you want to talk about molesting characters, how about Deadpool? Like, first of all, you make Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, which is bad enough, and then, I don't even know what they did. They made some kind of, no pun intended, but they made some kind of mutated freaking version of Deadpool that was just like, I don't even know. It's like, they made him mute, even though Deadpool's whole shtick is being a smartass. But they took away his ability to speak. Like, I don't know. It was horrible. And then the movie The Wolverine was one of the worst things I've seen in a long time. I thought X-Men Days of Future Past was really good. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything in this because, obviously, there's probably people who haven't seen the movie. Go see it. It's fantastic. The cast is outstanding. The way that they bring the old cast together with the new cast. The fact that the Sentinels are finally in it, who is one of my favorite X-Men villains. I used to have a cartoon VHS that I used to watch all the time as a kid. It was called like Night of the Sentinels from X-Men. I thought it was awesome, and I love the Sentinels. The fact that they brought them into this movie was great. What they did with the whole timeline and everything, again, not spoiling, but what they did with the timeline and what ultimately happens, I thought was really cool. Obviously getting a look at the villain at the end of the credits. Yes, if you go see the movie, you have to stay till all of the credits are over. You get a sneak peek of the next villain, which he looks cool. I thought the whole movie was really good, and I'm very glad, like I said, that Singer is back at the helm. He knows how to handle X-Men, and he should have just, he should have just handled everything X-Men. There shouldn't have been other people that came in and did it because they screwed it up. They did screw stuff up with the timeline in the Origins movies and stuff, and I think Singer did his best to try to reconcile everything. I really did. I think Singer was like, what I started, all these other directors have massively fucked, and everything is all like blown to shit, so I'm just going to do the best that I can to reconcile all the timeline stuff and make it come back together, and I think he did it really well. I mean, he had a mess on his hands, and I think he handled it about as well as he could have in the movie, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Final question in this extra long Voodoo's Mailbag, which is awesome. I love doing these. Do you think that you will start a new podcast series? No, I don't. If I was going to do a podcast, I'd still do Voodoo's Brew. There's nothing wrong with Voodoo's Brew. I don't have anything new to say in a new podcast. I pretty much give you all the info in the weekly rituals, etc. This was an idea I had at the beginning of last year, I think, when Brandon and I weren't speaking, just because we fell out of contact. And obviously, we wound up getting back together in contact, and then we frickin' had a gigantic trip where I wound up on Hollywood Boulevard. But we did go through a streak during school where we weren't communicating, and now it's summertime and we are back talking again. But and another thing with everything going on the channel, when am I going to throw a podcast on it? You know, I got so much stuff uploading all the time, whether it's video game playthroughs, whether it's stuff like this, whether it's the weekly ritual, whether it's a game review, whether it's this or that or this, or when am I going to possibly find time to do another podcast and then upload it where everybody will see it? Because of one channel, I can't make it a featured video, so I have to curtail my uploads. Sorry, I forgot to mute this. I have to curtail my uploads accordingly. And, you know, so I just, for me, you know, there's no reason for me to continue to, you know, to try to make a new podcast and do all these other sort of things. So, but you know, that's sort of the deal. So, no new podcasts in the works. If I ever do podcast stuff, it's just going to be Voodoo's Brew, and we'll go from there. So, all right, that is it for Voodoo's Mailbag episode 3. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed doing it. Like I said, I love answering you guys' questions. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and this series gives me the opportunity, and I'm thankful, because let's be honest, normally when I ask for feedback and stuff like that, I don't really get a good response, but every time I've done one of these, it's been great. I've gotten tons of questions, and I've been able to do them, and it's been really fun. So thank you to those who ask questions. I appreciate that, and you know, I will be doing another one of these shortly, so look soon for another video that will be posted asking for questions on Voodoo's Mailbag episode 4. So thank you guys for asking the questions. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Voodoo, and yeah, I will see you guys later. Have a good one, and peace out.